It took a world war for Keynesianism to become government policy. As the U.S. government borrowed money and pumped it into the war effort, in a radio broadcast, Keynes expressed his hope that what worked in war would work in peace.
If expenditure on armaments really does cure unemployment, the grand experiment has begun.
Now teaching at the London School of Economics, Hayek feared that Keynes' Brave New World was a big step in the wrong direction. He attacked the growing consensus by writing The Road to Serfdom. Sarcastically dedicated to socialists of all parties, it was a popular success. There was even a cartoon version of it. Its message was simple and direct. Too much government planning means too much government power. And too much government power over the economy destroys freedom and makes men slaves. For Hayek, central planning was the first step to a totalitarian state.
Well, Hayek thought that since freedom was an absolute, you must let a competitive system just work itself out.
Hayek always rejected macroeconomics. He rejected any government intervention during the Great Depression itself.
Most people would have agreed with Keynes when he wrote this to Hayek.
What we want is not no planning, or even less planning. We almost certainly want more.
In the battle of ideas, Hayek was on the losing side.
I had a fairly good reputation as an economic theorist in 1944 when I published The Road to Serfdom. And it was treated, even by the academic community, very largely as a malicious effort by a reactionary to destroy high ideals.
With the world at war, Keynes traveled to Bretton Woods and a grand resort hotel. Here, delegates gathered from all over the world to organize the post-war economy. The Bretton Woods Conference created the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. They were designed to bring stability to the world economy and prevent the unemployment and the depression of the 1930s. Keynes' idealism and humanity were an inspiration. Keynes did not have long to live. Ill and overworked, his health gave way, but his reputation and influence outlived him.
When Keynes died, Keynes and I were the best-known economists. Then two things happened. Keynes died and was raised to sainthood, and I discredited myself by publishing The Road to Serfdom. And that changed the situation completely. And for the following 30 years, it was only Keynes who counted, and I was gradually almost forgotten.
In Britain, the troops were coming home to a general election. Winston Churchill, the great wartime leader and head of the Conservative Party, expected an easy victory. Everywhere he went, huge crowds turned out to cheer the nation's hero. Heading the campaign against Churchill was Clement Attlee, leader of the Labour Party. Attlee argued that Britain had planned the war, and now planning would win the peace. Churchill, who was influenced by Hayek's book, The Road to Serfdom, opposed planning and controls.
No socialist system can be established without a political police, some form of Gestapo.
He got carried away with this Gestapo. And this, of course, it was carrying things to absurdity. Gestapo in Britain.
Attlee, a mild-mannered Christian socialist, gave Churchill's gaffe a sinister spin.
Attlee actually went out of his way to refer to this foreign professor with this Friedrich August von Hayek, this foreign chap with a slightly German accent.
Britain went to the polls. The result was sensational.
Here is the state of parties up to 3 o'clock in detail. Conservatives, 180. Labour, 364.
Churchill was out. The people had voted for a new socialist Britain.
And so we broke into the concept of the sacredness of private property.
When Labour took power, private owners were compelled to sell their businesses. Labour created a mixed economy in which newly nationalized industries coexisted with private enterprise. The welfare state provided care, free of charge, from womb to tomb. Nobody, rich or poor, would need to fear poverty, ignorance, unemployment, ill health, or old age. Russia ended the war as a military and industrial giant. With the Red Army and the secret police, Stalin imposed his economic system on half of Europe.
The planned economy of Lenin and Stalin had defeated fascism. Scientific socialism seemed to be in the ascendancy.
Socialism was on the march. Capitalism and free markets were on the retreat.
So about 1/3 of the world adopted socialism, sometimes through internal revolution, sometimes through brutal imposition by the Red Army.
The world was divided. The Cold War had begun.